Welcome to Dunsmore Moving Dirt. Showed we got moved in on the grub job yesterday, and I did have to come over here and hit one tree before I went in, and that's just perfect. That's what you want when you grub some trees. Get all the stump and everything out. Basically, I'm going to be on top of this flat hill up here. They call this Black Flat because it's from here several miles that way. We're on probably the northern edge of it, and it's black ground, and then it falls off just regular Archer County ground. But up here it's just a knob, and there's not many acres up on top. We're going to try this first. There's probably 20 acres up here. Going to leave a few good trees for shade and everything. We're going to stay up on top for this year, and then next year we may go down in the bottom and grub some. Try to get these first and kind of see how it looks, and we'll be off down there. There's a little old pond down there, a stock tank, and it was just about dry. They've had a lot of rain up here, so chances are that's why usually you don't grub this end of May, 1st of June, because you're done out of moisture. But since it's been blessed with all this rain and everything, we can extend the grubbing season just a little bit. But once this moisture's gone, I mean, all this grass, the trees are leaved out, they're sucking moisture out of the ground, so probably got a 2 to 3 week period, and then it's summertime and you won't grub no more till this fall or winter when the trees lose their leaves and they go dormant and they quit pulling moisture out of the ground. So that pulled out fine. One thing you got to watch is all this grass. You don't want to wait till you get up on your tree to try to put your grubber in the ground, because it's going to slide just a little bit before it takes the ground. So you got to allow for that, kind of get it in the ground or start it in the ground before you get to the tree. If not, you're just going to cut it off. So the grubber fit everything all right, like I said yesterday, but only thing I've got to watch is, now this did have it was a couple railroad irons. It come out here about this far, and it was kind of a push block, which in a way it was good. You could start to push your tree over and then grub, but there's one thing it did. There was a space about out to here from there. And what happens, this has not got a very big opening or throat, that's what I call them. We've had grubbers before that they were that wide, but they had another 1.5 foot open in there, and that's what you want when you're wanting to try to just run 3 trees through it as you grub. But that deal stuck up here. When I try to clean my grubber out, something would pop up in there, and that would keep that thing from cleaning out. So I'm going to try it. I don't really need to push. I can always raise up my grubber and push a tree over, then back up and grub it out. So that's not really a big deal. But the rams are so close, they're sticking straight up and down because the hookups is pretty close. On a blade, your ram's tilted back a little bit because your blades are a little bit farther in front of the dozer. So one thing you got to kind of watch is as you go in the ground, that ram starts to tilt up toward the front of the dozer, and when it does, them hoses start to get tight. So there's enough room. It's not going to hurt anything, but it's just something to watch. I did adjust that hose and tilted it up. Usually what I do whenever I start to replace hoses, I get them just a little bit longer, just for this, because my rake and this grubber are the things that I have trouble with the most, because your rams are more straight up and down, and as you go in the ground they get straighter, which in turn pulls them hoses tighter. So, and you can't get too much slack in your hose. If you do, they stay bent a lot, and that's a point where they're easy to break. So other than that, that's just the only thing I got to watch. Like I say, it hooked up good. I did have to go get me some different bolts, because the new bolts on the blade they come to right here. Well, that's not no good when you're trying to hook to this, so I had to go get me some shorter bolts. But I've got 1.5 inch clearance on this side and maybe a 1/2 inch on the other side, which that's enough. I got just a little less clearance on this side. I'm thinking this thing right here has probably been sprung because it's been broke a couple times. So, but that's still enough right there to grub without rubbing and everything. So just kind of got to watch. I don't want to go raking no trees across the front of it yet, but everything's basically just like the other one. But I'm probably going to hang the camera on the dozer. I was going to do a drone flight this morning before I started and show you what it looked like before, but the dead-gum winds to be so high up on top of this flat. It's just a hill. And like you say, it's just as flat as it can be, just any direction you look from here except for north where it falls off this bluff. So, but maybe the wind will quit blowing either this evening or maybe tomorrow, and I was wanting to fly over and show you what it looked like before I grub, but if not, we'll show it to you after we knock it down before we rake it. So we'll hang the camera up on the dozer somewhere, and I'll try not to let a tree swap it off and let it hit the ground. Then maybe this evening, if it gets warm, we'll go inside the cab and show you some of that. I still need to adjust my hydraulics. I think it's too aggressive, but I'll wait to see. Since I don't have my tilt on, that tilt cylinder seemed like it was really what was aggressive on this thing. So I was surprised how balanced the dozer is. That other one, when you pulled off the blade and was walking it around the yard, like to pull the blade off, put the grubber on, or vice versa, it was seemed like it was unbalanced. And I don't know what they've done. I know the rippers are just as heavy as what was on that other one, but they've either extended the front a little bit to account for that balance. I know there was a tag where I seen just the blade itself, not the push arms or none of that, just the blade itself was 4,000 pounds. And there's not a bit of telling what them arms and your tilt cylinder and all that weighs. So I don't know if they had to compensate for some of that weight that was on the front, but when you took the blade off, you could walk it around without feeling like you was on a bucking horse. I mean, it didn't try to hop up and down. It just pretty well tracked straight. So that's something they've changed. I hadn't weighed the dozer yet to see what it weighs empty. I know I'm taller. I measured it on the truck yesterday, and that other one was about, well, the dozer was 10.3, and time I had it on the truck, it was about a little over 13. And now I'm bumping almost 14 foot on the truck, so there's one underpass I may have, or overpass I'll have to watch. I think it said it was 13.9, and I'm 13.11 3/4, so you can pretty well say I'm 3 foot. So I'm 14 foot. So okay, I got my seat belt on. I ain't figured out how to get away from that yet, so I don't think nobody else has. So one thing when you're grubbing, if there's big trees and little trees, you got to remember, you don't want to cover up a little tree with your big tree when you knock it down. So a lot of times I'll go around the tree and be sure there's nothing behind it before I rub it out. Then I don't have to worry about covering something up. If I'm a little jerky, this is the first time I've really done anything with this dozer, so I'm still trying to get used to not having to move the lever to go forward reverse. You just flip the button. I want to push the lever, then get my speeds fixed. I've still got it in eco mode, which that's just a fuel saver. It keeps the RPMs down to 1850 or 19 since you're walking it around a lot. Then if you get into something it needs, it speeds itself up. If I was pushing dirt, I'd just leave it in regular wide open all the time. If it ever feels like that tree is cut off or something, sometimes I'll just go right back in the same hole and be sure it didn't ride out of the ground on me. I'll kind of go through the middle here, then cut me off a little section. Usually it's better if you'll just, instead of going around a whole block of brush, you know, make it an acre and a half or something. The thicker it is, the smaller you want to go around it, but don't just sit there and go around a big piece of brush. The more angles you can hit that brush, and comes to a point you can get some, instead of, because you'll wind up, if the trees are very thick, you'll just stay on the outside of them trees because you don't want to get in the middle of that brush and knock the paint off everything. So there's different things you can do. You see a little opening area, you go through it and try to get the trees, and you got a little void there where you can kind of duck off in every now and then and hit a tree at another angle. So there's all different things you can do to speed the process up a little bit. this place that we're on, it was my business partners, and now it's the estate. Of course, they're just like family to me. So when I first started working for him 53 years ago, I spent a lot of time up here. I was just a teenager. And this was one of the farms that he farmed. Him and his partner had it leased, and I was up here doing something all the time. Working, swimming, plowing. As a matter of fact, I've grubbed this place probably more than once, and that's just a never-ending deal here, because you're not going to wipe all the trees out. They're always going to be coming back. So I've spent a lot of time up on this farm, and worked on several of the ponds. When him and his first partner went in business, they leased this farm, and then they bought it, and it's a little over 3/4 of a section. Of course, when his first partner passed away, they split it up, so they've got it fenced off. Each one got half the pasture and half the field. The man that owned it before that, he was a farmer. He farmed it, and then had a little old trailer. They'd go on wheat harvest. And one thing this place has always been bad about is rattlesnakes. I mean, they're just homegrown up here now. They're just thick as they can be. And they always had a bunch of dogs. They had a garage, used to be a house on the other end. And when I first started working, that's the field in front of us. There was over 200 something acres in the field. And at that time, when he started farming, he just had a little 40-20 tractor, and I think we had a 14-foot disc and a 9-foot chisel plow. And that's what I farmed with. I'd ride on that tractor all day long. They had a bunch of dogs, and they had one border collie, and he was red, and for some reason he wanted to follow me around this field all the time. Of course, there wasn't no place for him to ride on that 40-20. He'd get hot, and he'd wait in the turn row till I got back around. And this is the petition fence right here in front of us. That divides this side's cropland too. They're going to plant cotton and it, and then the other part they put wheat in, that part right there. But then up there's the old hay barn. That's where the house used to be. But them dogs had snake bites all over them. One dog was blind because the snake had bit him pretty close to the eye. And then they'd bite them someplace else, and the skin would kind of die. But they pretty well kept the snakes away from the house, or got bit trying. So that border collie, he'd catch a snake and he'd shake it and whip it, and sometimes he'd throw it over a fence, barbed wire fence, and it'd hang up there and die. But he was my buddy. He followed me all. It didn't matter if it was daytime or nighttime. I'd be out here plowing at night, and he had followed me around the field and everything. So that's the view from the top of the hill, looking out across the bottom. You can see how much elevation changes the farther north you get. I'm gonna kick her up 1 notch. I'm up here where these little ones are. This is, I might have mentioned one time why I like grubbing. If there's a little trees when the leaves are out, because you can see them. When the leaves ain't out, they just look like a little old stick there, and you don't know if it's a weed or a mesquite tree. I think the cab on this new one is not as quiet as the cab on that old one. I mean, you hear a little bit more pump noise in this cab because you're sitting on top of the pump, which you was on that other, but I don't know if they changed the insulation up. I mean, you don't hear nothing else except for that, and of course you hear the tracks clicking, but cabs seems to be a whole lot bigger, and you've got more. I think you got a little bit better visibility with this one than you did the other one. And you won't see me tilting the cab up on this one because it don't tilt. You've got access through the floorboard to a little bit of stuff, but if something major happens, you pull the cab off of it. So that's a job for a real mechanic there. There's no way I can do that. So A little bit sticky right there. The thinner the trees are, the less moisture they're pulling out of the ground. So. Trying to watch them hoses and see how much farther I can go down without them stretching out. Oh, well, there's water standing right there. That's why it looks wet. I didn't see that water. I believe cutting that deal off the front of that grubber's helping so far, because I think I'd have been stopped up, but now some of these things got a pretty big root wad on them. When I used to be plowing up here at night, you wouldn't know it, but the next morning when you started plowing, you could see where you plowed that night, and you could see rattlesnakes that you'd killed while you was out there plowing, and you didn't see them because it's dark. The lights weren't very good on tractors back then, so. But they was out there in that field at night. drive, I'm gonna hang you up back here on some kind of hook. I don't know what it's for, but maybe you can see a little bit of what's going on inside the cab. Say, I know the cab's bigger. I think these doors are wider on here and everything. Of course, this is like the other one. This is your blade control, sideways tilt, which I don't have the tilt on there, so back and forth and all. It's got some buttons here, but that's for a lot of automatic blade control and stuff. And then your ripper knob is here. Then if you got anything else hooked to that, of course your panel here where you tell it what to do, and then your gauges up here. Then the other side's your steering. Like I say, on it you don't move the lever forward or reverse to go forward or reverse. You just flip a switch, and then the gear selection or your speed is a little knob there. So right now I'm still running in eco mode, so it's not full RPM. It's between 17 and 1800, and that's plenty enough to pull these trees out of the way. And now I'm wearing my seat belt, or we won't be able to move till I figure that out later. On 1.3 and I kicked it up to 1.4 out here in these thin stuff. You can go around pretty good on here in these. Noise you're picking up, the pumps and stuff. I just about got used to it. Got the radio on. It don't seem to be as loud. I may need to adjust my speakers. I don't know how many there are. Because I'm hard of hearing anyways. I usually just crank it up. Really mind wearing the seat belt, because I mean it's not restrictive or anything, but when you're hooking up something like I was to the rake or the grubber and you had to get in and out, but then have to redo the seat belt every time you move, that's what's aggravating. In the cabin back there, you're probably seeing what I'm seeing when I grub. I can't see nothing directly in front of me unless the tree's up above the dozer, but after a while you know just by watching the tree, and you can feel it if it snaps off. Of course, if it's above the grill, you can tell when you got it out. Now them little ones is different. If they're below the top of the cab, you just don't. After a while, you kind of time it. You know it should be out. You can kick off to the side, and sometimes you'll see it fly off to the side. So you just got to be sure when there's heavy vegetation on the ground that you give your grubber time to get in the ground. Don't just run up to the tree and think you're going to get it. Chance of time out of 10 you're going to cut it off if you wait too late to put your grubber down. Which I never carry it all the way up in the air when you're grubbing, but just skimming the ground. You ain't got time to sit there and wait to lower it. right back to where you was at without going past the tree, because it'll just almost turn in itself. You've got time to kind of line up and go right back to where you was at. But you're always looking to find the next tree off to the side. Someone to grub, if you're going in a square or circle or whatever, if you're always turning to the right, you don't care about what's on the right, you care about what's on the left between where you made your last pass and where you currently are. Because you'll see that tree on the right, on your right side when you come back around to make another pass. So if I don't see a tree in view, I'll swing out and look down the road here and see what I've got coming up. Then if I don't have nothing, then I'll look to the right to see what I can get to the right side of where you're going. The windows tinted in this thing with some kind of ceramic tint. I don't ask me how that works. So far, I can tell the difference with that on there. You know, it's 4 o'clock right now, and usually if we record or 6 or 7, that sun's shining on coming in the side of your cab, and then early in the morning it's coming in. Both sides of noon, it's usually straight up, so it's not trying to come in the window. So I mean, I've got the air conditioner on low, and it's plenty comfortable in here. Like I say, the sun's starting to shine in from the west side. Just can't feel the heat of that sun, so I guess it was worth the money that